It might only be the second day of practice, but is it too early to be touting UCLA as DBU?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for tuning in. We're talking about UCLA basketball's potential 5-for-5 ads. One, looking elsewhere. Does that mean the Bruins will even add anybody? Second, we're analyzing what UCLA's Bruin Brotherhood show on YouTube was. The first episode recently released. I took a look. We'll analyze that. But first, let's talk about the Bruins and their position of depth. After I tell you, today's episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app, use the code LOCKEDON, and get $10 when you trade $10. All right, so UCLA football. Obviously, things are getting cooking. We're excited. Practice is here. Fall camp is here. You'll see questions. Guys will slowly get working more and more and more as we get closer to the first game, September 5th at Cal, 7:30 kickoff. And what do we think? UCLA's biggest position of depth is it's the secondary. UCLA has had so much talent returning, brought in via high school recruiting and via the transfer portal from JMU recruits, from what's been returning from the Power Four, from even at the lower levels, to what UCLA already had last year under former defensive backs coach Meat, his son Cole Martin being one of the leaders of that group, being sent to Big Ten Media Days. And then you're like, man, this team has a lot of speed, a lot of potential, and while you do look at UCLA kind of moving from maybe of a softer zone shell to a tighter man coverage, you wonder what UCLA is going to do to mix and match the players they have returning, the new players, and for a program that hasn't seen consistency at the defensive coordinator position for quite some time, for a very long time. Yes, coaches leave, coaches change, and that's what we saw at the head level with Bob Chesney coming in, but from the Jim Mora age into Chip Kelly, and then to Deshaun Foster, things kept churning over and over. And with Colin Hitchler, the calling card was physical defense, being able to get pressure on the Sunbelt opponents, being able to keep the ball in front when they played Louisville earlier in the year, last year with JMU. And now the question is, do the Bruins have the physicality up front to showcase their DBs to have a lot of chances to force turnovers? UCLA needs to force turnovers this year if they want to do a lot better than their expectations. I believe I did an episode earlier in the spring or the summer about whether there's turnover luck, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions returned for touchdowns. And the last time UCLA had a truly outstanding season, we're talking the 22-23 seasons. That's when UCLA obviously was dominant defensively, but you had a lot of turnovers, physical, forcing fumbles, and namely this year the secondary, you're looking at national champions from two separate rosters, right? Malik Hartford from Ohio State, Jace McMillan making plays with Montana State in the national championship game at the FCS level, and then you've got Power Four, or you got returning players who have transferred in from elsewhere. Cole Martin, you have Rodrick Pleasant, who have been with UCLA for a year, who bring a lot of speed and starting potential that can add other dynamics with Teo Johnson and other UCLA players that come in as a DB. And then, mind you, some of the freshmen are still coming up and coming from the likes of the trendy leagues, the local SoCal talent. There's so much talent in the defensive backfield that for UCLA, if they can generate any pressure up front, if the front seven can make sure the other teams just don't run all over them, if they can get to the quarterback with not much time for him to throw, the next thing you know, hey, maybe the Bruins can make some plays. Earlier today in practice, seeing what some questions were posed, the name being thrown out there is Osiris Gilbert, the transfer from UConn. Again, that's another Jim Mora transfer because Mora left UConn to go take a new job in the offseason. So you're mixing in transfers from Virginia Tech, from UConn, from Montana State, the starting safety over at Utah, and then some starters from last year who made plays while we wait for the return of Scooter Jackson, while we look and wait for the big-time speed and athleticism for Rodrick Pleasant, who overcame his shoulder injury to recover, and hopefully he's at full strength now into the 26th season. There's so many guys that can battle for starting spots in this 4-2-5 that whether you're playing inside knuckle, you're playing man, whether the Bruins change it up going to the Big Ten to help themselves transition with a defensive line that we hope can make some plays here in 2026, it's up to the secondary to help lead the defense. All right. Sometimes it's just being ball hawks. This is the team that, for the second straight year, with what they've emphasized, DBU. Last few years, they've been hitting the defensive backs pretty hard in the transfer portal and high school recruiting, and we're starting to see it pay off. And even with the new staff, they're still continuing to bring in talent in the secondary. All right. Whether it be the safety, strong, free, or in the corner position. All right. So for UCLA, can they actually make plays with what's coming in? Again, national championship experience, whether it's full experience or just being a part of those programs, being those teams in the Hartford's case. And then you get guys who have bounced around all the way from the Power Four. And even the guys who are backup corners at their previous spots are getting heralded now by their teammates here in just the second day of practice. All right. That's where the hype is for UCLA this year. So can they come in and make some plays for a team that last year needed a lot more playmakers and a lot more turnovers forced? Because if UCLA is going to emphasize playing turnover-free football to win some of those games, to pull off some of those upsets, if you're going to the Oregons, you're going to be playing the likes of an Illinois at home, you're playing Michigan on the road, you're playing other top 25 caliber teams or solid teams in the Big Ten, you're playing one of the better young quarterbacks on the West Coast in Cal on opening night, and you're like, JKS, yeah, you got to force some turnovers. So they're going to be tested right away. So I wonder how they're going to develop with the new system, the new verbiage, the new language here in these first few weeks of fall camp. And can the big boys up front, led by Sahir West and company, be strong enough, quick enough to make enough plays and bully the quarterback into some mistakes? Whether it's timing mistakes, forcing the offensive line to adjust for Sahir West or somebody else on this line, we're looking for the secondary to make some plays here in 2026. Next, I'm going to talk about my review of Bruin Brotherhood, the UCLA full-on, behind-the-scenes, all-access doc for the Bruins in spring ball to hype us up during fall camp for Bob Chesney, introduce him on all these coaches to us UCLA fans, presented by the UCLA Athletics page. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Let's tell you about the game. Since 1986, the game has been creating college classic hats, classic college hats that fans are proud to wear. Whether you're alumnus, current student, season ticket holder, or simply someone who never misses a game, a great college hat is more than just apparel. It's a way to represent your school wherever you go. This year, the game is celebrating its 40th anniversary by giving fans a chance to save on some of the most iconic college hats. If you've been thinking about replacing an old favorite or adding a new one to your collection, now is the perfect time. Think about this. Maybe you're going to a tailgate this year for a UCLA game, whether you're going at home to the Rose Bowl or you're going on the road, you're going to represent the Bruins on the road. Props to you. Well, you probably want to have some cool gear, right? And if you're going to some of these places earlier in the year and it's a little bit warm, you're going to want a sweet hat, protect the sun, showcase the UCLA love, and be like, hey, wait a minute, we got to show off that blue and gold. Well, with hundreds of officially licensed college hats to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit for game day and every day. Don't miss the chance to celebrate 40 years of the game with 40% off your entire order. Visit thegamecaps.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's thegamescaps.com. Thegamescaps.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Forever celebrate 40 years of the game with 40% off. Don't wait. This anniversary offer won't last forever. Again, that's thegamecaps.com. All right, UCLA has gone back to their content creating ways with their athletics YouTube channel, right? UCLA Athletics has put on their own behind the scenes, all access way for us as the fans, for us as the people who love to watch, talk about the team, even you at home watching and listening to this, about how to get in love with this team this year. Bob Chesney's team, and I know they did something similar to Sean Foster. He understood that, hey, like Chip Kelly didn't do any of this. If you went back to Chip Kelly's original contract, there was something for the talent fee. His actual base salary was technically six figures. His talent fee is what got the six figures to get Chip Kelly to keep coming to work every day. Funny thing is, he never really cared about his media engagements. Now, in this new day and age where Deshaun Foster has helped UCLA get to this next step, he helped, I think, even though the wins and losses didn't get there, he did realize that there had to be some vibe and some fun for UCLA. Well, now the Bruins are pumping it up on steroids with Bob Chesney and company, trying to get the new word out that UCLA is a cool place to be. once again, the Bruins have hit it out of the park with this Bruin Brotherhood doc. It's an awesome one so far. It was over 70 minutes? Hour and 14, 15 minutes on YouTube if you watch the premiere late on a Thursday night to coincide with the end of the first day of fall camp. And here's some of the takeaways I took. All right, and there's so much in this documentary. Of course, you can see the personalities of the Cole Martins of the world, the Samuel Mosigos. Of course, they tried to put in Nico there, and you learned so much about Bob Chesney and the relationship with how him and Dean Kennedy actually became, I don't know if you want to be boys or how they got connected to be coaches on the same staff, but the fact that it was a part of handwritten letters, connection, donating to charities, and that's why UCLA has an offensive coordinator named Dean Kennedy, who's been with Bob Chesney now for multiple stops. Here's some things that stood out to me, including Bob Chesney saying this quote: UCLA is one football team away from having the most dominant athletic department in the country. Now, I think that was a part of a louder quote to the boosters, to the alumni, to the people I think at a dinner is fairly early on, and that kind of stuck out to me. He was talking about, UCLA has some of the most team national championships in the country, all right? Obviously second to Stanford. But you know what Stanford doesn't have? A historic tradition in the world of football. Now, when I was growing up, since I'm much, much younger than most, Stanford is actually good, and we were getting smoked by Stanford every year. That's since changed. The Harbaugh, Shaw eras are no more, and it's a little bit different. So we'll see what Stanford does. But UCLA overall, a lot of championships, a lot of national championships. And if they, in today's day and age, get a championship contender, we will fund that. Think about this. We're starting to get more and more funding for the athletic department, for NIL, growing after all those years of people turning down season tickets, turning down the Wooden Athletic Fund, trying to understand what this Bruins for Life was and how the NIL umbrella was a little confusing and how they keep trying to fix it and make it go correctly. Well, think about this. If UCLA has a national contender in football, which can drive so much money, regardless of how much money they make from Rose Bowl gate revenue or not, parking or not, suite revenue or not, it's not going to come in the way of men's basketball tickets at the moment. It's not going to make itself up in any other sport with money. It's going to come through football. And that can help just drive even more national recognition for one of the biggest brands in all of academics, in all of athletics. And once you go to the king sport in all of college athletics, the one that rules all and has really turned everything upside down, the reason why UCLA is in the Big Ten in the first place, Bob Chesney's quote again, we're one football program away from being the most dominant athletic department in the country. And some might consider themselves the most dominant athletic department for one sport, for two sports. But what about everything? UCLA has everything but the return to glory in football. Notice how I didn't say, they're for the first time ever. It's the return to glory. Maybe not national prominence consistently, but return to glory and tradition. That's what UCLA is closing. And that was a quote that stuck out to me and kind of got me thinking, wow, that's kind of true. Or maybe you think that's a stupid notion. The Bruins are the most iconic athletic department, or they're nowhere near because they're run horribly. Those are different things. But in terms of success and championships, that is what the quote is meant to endear, at least to me. Secondly, here's another thing. They're talking during practice, and I think it was just Chesney running around during spring practice at the time. This is when they filmed it. And he said, I forget exactly to who it was. I'm not even sure it was clear to whom. Average is trying to creep in. Average is trying to creep in. That word is coming in. Obviously, he has his pillars, and he tries to live by it, and he was repeating it over and over. But the fact that he's coming, he's like, average is trying to creep in. All right? And for so long, think about how UCLA has been average in their recruiting and the attendance and just how they've run and gone after things. Now, obviously, we swung big quite a few years ago now to try and get an extension for Jim Moore, go after big 5 stars, replaced him with a big move and try to go after Chip Kelly. But everything since then has been a level of mediocrity and average that just hasn't been the same since we got rid of Jim Moore, brought in Chip Kelly, and the average mediocre part of Bruin fandom kind of snuck in, which was never the case, honestly, prior. And we become the butt of all jokes where I don't think we should be. Average is trying to sneak in, and Bob Chesney is the complete opposite of average. He takes woeful and makes them great. That's what he's done at the D3 level. D2, FCS, did that at the FBS with JMU and their new FBS conference there in the Sun Belt, took them to the playoff, and he's going to take UCLA from mediocrity to greatness pretty soon. All right, I think that's pretty clear if you're watching this, if you've been watching the Bruin Brotherhood, if you've been watching or listening to anything Chesney said at Big Ten Media Days, opening press conference, everything he's trying to make his face known, high school recruiting, how they've attacked West Coast ties. He's not doing it in the basis of being average. That's not what's happening. And I don't think in any sense of the word, UCLA will be average. Now, yes, the hope is the Bruins can make a bowl game. And theoretically, in a 12 game year, you go 6-6. That's a definition of being average. Well, initially a bowl game way back when meant you won 6 of your 10 games or 11, and you're better than 500. You won 60%. You went to a bowl game that wasn't as easy to access as it is now in 26 while they're trying to figure out what the bowl games look like. 6-6 bowl eligibility, yeah, that's going to be a lot better than last year's 3-win team, which was brought up, I believe, immediately by Cole Martin in the first part of the doc and part of the show, where, yeah, we were a 3-win team last year. They know it. They want to be better, and this team is certainly talented enough to fill the gap, to fill the holes that were last year's team, last couple of years, with the holes left by Chip Kelly's vacancy that Deshaun Foster couldn't fill, and Bob Chesney has the resume and the proof that he's already done that at every stop he's been as a head coach at the college level and wants to do it here as head coach of UCLA. Average is starting to creep in, not with UCLA, not anymore. And the final thing that really caught my eye, especially close to the end of the show, was how much of an emphasis that Nico started to put in, right? They put an emphasis on Nico. Now, a lot of it was Samuel Mosigo. You saw some other guys, some linemen. You saw the Bruin games. There was a lot of Cole Martin, a lot of talks from the coaches and trying to see what it looked like for how they hyped up the strength and conditioning, how they brought the team together so that there's some cohesion for the majority of the roster heading into fall camp, all right? To get everybody together, competing, stronger, better, faster, more athletic, and to become a Bruin family. But it was interesting that you would think, all right, the biggest name, one of the most controversial names in college football last year, polarizing names because of his departure from Tennessee to UCLA in the spring, which really changed the game in terms of transfer portaling in the spring, you didn't see anything to the end. Now, obviously, you wanted to have people keep watching, but there was a big emphasis to talk about Nico and what to talk about his leadership and to pump up him, all right? And now Nico is not the loudest voice in terms of a talker to the camera, to the microphone. If that was the case, imagine if Nico was Johnny Manziel now and he did that transfer. That would be the most talked about story in sports. If he was Baker Mayfield planting flags, UCLA. Yeah, now that's not Nico's personality. And for everything I heard about Nico, he's a great kid. It's what's the advice that's led him to this stage of his career and why he's bounced around so much, whether it was high school or in college. That's a different story. But Nico himself needs a bit of an image rehabilitation, even though you can see it seems like a genuine heart, genuine spirit from what he's talked, how he's played, how he stayed at UCLA. There's a big interest and investment to make sure, all right, can Nico Iamaleava be a leader and a focal point for the Bruin offense this year? He can't be the leading rusher. That's not Nico's fault last year, but he can be a leader, a vocal leader. And the thing Chesney was quick to point out, I believe he said the same thing at Big Ten Media Days, but I know I've heard this before, where he was talking about Nico came so late in the season last year because of, or earlier in the year, where he transferred in, only had a few weeks, and then didn't really know anybody. All right, mind you, this was Chesney talking at Big Ten Media Days, and this was him being talked about a few weeks ago and talking about spring ball. Nico didn't have a full spring because of him transferring right before the Tennessee spring football game and then having one offense getting pulled underneath out of the rug from him, going to a Jerry Neuheisel offense, surprising Penn State, and then next thing you know, the Bruins got 3 wins, and the hope is that the hitch in his delivery, that his decision-making and his overall skill set as a pocket passer all improves with an offense that is geared towards Nico's success and what his actual skills are. Is he the true pocket passer that we're ever going to see in old school NFL? No. Will he be more the under center guy? Who knows? But this is a guy with the athleticism and the ability to help lead UCLA successfully and be the face of a football program that, quite frankly, was a bit without an identity in 2025. And Nico, unfortunately, became the face for everything wrong with UCLA football last year, even though that was not the case. Everything coming out of, why is it so bad, the administration? Well, they figured it out, got Bob Chesney, they got the support, And this is a chance to rehabilitate Nico's image. And that's what it truly felt like, especially towards the latter third of that show where, all right, Nico, let's get this pumped up and make sure that we showcase what good sides of him there are to see instead of all the reporting and all the stuff about his team around him, not the UCLA team, his actual team, to leave Tennessee, to ask for the more money and get himself richer, as the Tennessee fans would say, to come over to UCLA. And there's still probably negotiations behind closed doors, all those prior to that. Now we'll wonder and see how Nico plays this year, and if the leadership picks up, it'll be the prodigal son returning home, and all of a sudden, it'll be just a redemption story, a redemption arc. That would be quite entertaining for all UCLA fans to love, including myself, despite all the criticism and despite all the knocks he's taken from myself and everywhere else. So that's what I took from that show. And I can't wait for UCLA to continue to pump out more. They're taking it to the next level in this content creation in all of college football. You see some of these other departments, football programs, are just adding and adding and adding. Just a simple weight room session is turning into like 50 million shorts and just slow-mo moments with lights and fog machines and everything. It's you're like, wow. Yeah, this isn't your average workout, and college football athletes are in a different world compared to every other college sports program for the most part in terms of how they work out, get better, get stronger, and how they're fed. It's nuts. But we hope the Bruins are doing it the right way. Speak of doing it the right way, is Mick Cronin doing the right way of adding and organizing to this team in the next season? The Bruins could potentially add one more spot to fill in the 5-for-5 era, right? Players have added more chances, more times to become a college basketball player, college football player, get a 5th year of eligibility with the injunctions. But one guy might not be looking at UCLA, so where are the Bruins looking at next here on Locked On UCLA? Before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. For the Raiders, I'm a big Raiders fan. Think about this. Can the Raiders win at least 6 games this season? The Raiders are currently trading, here are the numbers on Kalshi. The Raiders are trading for 6 wins at 63%. That means a $100 trade pays out at $159.57 if they reach at least 6 wins. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in the live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything, 18 plus only. Restrictions, eligibility required supply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Cruising on here with Locked On UCLA, we're talking UCLA men's hoops. Big news from John Rothstein. Is this going to say anything about UCLA? Well, here it is. Villanova transfer, Duke Brennan. Why does that name sound familiar? Well, that's a name that Ethan and I talked the other day as potential players the Bruins could go after who was interested in maybe going to UCLA as this 5-for-5 new portaling season can add more. The Bruins have another spot to fill, and that would be a clear fit at the 5. Instead, Duke Brennan cut his list according to his agents to Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, USC, and Villanova. All right, so this is a player still technically seeking a 5th year eligibility, but with basic injunctions all across the country. Some saying everybody can go, some saying they can't officially transfer. Either way, it looks like the door is being broken wide open, burst and busted down. UCLA is no longer on the list for Duke Brennan, according to this tweet and post from John Rothstein. So, UCLA, where can they go? There's other names Ethan and I talked about, but then there's one that could make some sense, although there's a lot more hurdles involved. Tyler Bilodeau. Is that a name that could lead to UCLA having a reunion with the NBA second-round pick of the Brooklyn Nets? Guy that's played summer ball. He could shoot the ball pretty well. May like where he's at, considering there could be a lot of playing time on a team that hasn't seen a lot of playoff success in recent years out there in Brooklyn, especially in the post-KD era. Can Tyler Bilodeau work his way legally back through pro contracts being signed and come back to UCLA? Is there a world where that can happen? Because it's still not clear whether these players can transfer, but Bilodeau's a player who could come back. Donovan Dent, a guy who has filed his name officially in that injunction to unretire and play college basketball, technically, at this moment, can't transfer. I think he'll be able to, and he should be able to, and if Gonzaga is the eventual destination for him, that would make sense. The difference between Dent, Bilodeau, and Clark put his name in the portal and was obviously petitioning for that final year for a very long time, so Clark can go wherever he sees fit and wherever he can get in. Hence, there's different places needing a lot of players, but it doesn't seem like a Clark reunion will happen. So Duke Brennan, a player who could have helped UCLA at the 5, has a lot of athletic family members, with some of which have a tie to UCLA, and overall would have helped the Bruins at a position of need in terms of depth. I think UCLA would have loved to have him. Instead, you're going to pivot to either Tyler Bilodeau, which still has some hoops to jump through, or you might not even see Cronin at this stage, late August. So many times he'll talk about how guys show up late, and it's not that messes up the culture or it messes up what he's trying to do, but it does kind of bring in, all right, you got a guy coming in late August? Well, technically, Nikola Kusturica hasn't even officially gotten to campus from what I know, from what I understand, and I think Bro Report reported that he's going to be coming pretty soon. It won't be playing at any more events, but it's pretty clear you still got one superstar you want to bring into this roster. Get him fully ingrained, and understand what you want to do with Cronin, and get, break down any barriers that might be as an international recruit coming in late in the summer, getting him eligible, and getting him ready to go. Whereas you bring in another senior transfer, he's going to be older, he's going to want to get some buckets, and he wants some PT. I wonder how that's going to jive versus a youngster who might have the international way of the world on his shoulders in 2 years as a potential lottery pick, whereas now he's still working his way in. So Duke Brennan, Villanova transfer, is not currently looking at UCLA according to Rothstein and his agent Earl Flags. So I think there's 3 options. It's technically 4. There's 3. Yeah, I keep going back and forth. 3. You got Bilodeau, you got nobody, and there's a wild card third option. Who could that third option be? Who knows? Do the Bruins and Mick Cronin's staff want to go through all of the potential legalese and figure out if they can get a guy in just to make him ineligible? 2, do nothing and stand pat. You've got a team that's got players and people excited, top 15 potential, top 20 expected in the preseason, one that can make some noise in the Big Ten as currently constructed with Booker at the starting 5. We even talked Ethan Sabo and I the other day, and he mentioned this, Jovic as the backup 5 to play for Booker, and how the Bruins can mix and match with the youthful exuberance and athleticism, the veteran transfers, the nastiest vodka drinking Eastern Europeans, and then you've got the returners to make a lineup that's good, solid, or the home run wild card option is bringing Bilodeau back all the way from NBA draftee to UCLA, get him healthy, get him shooting threes, 50, 40, 90 guy, and that can truly transform what UCLA is able to do with your best player returning from last year's roster after he was injured prior to the NCAA tournament, and ending, I think that should end a lot better than him not playing because he was injured, all right? So those are the options right now currently for UCLA. Some wild card option, you can go Tyler Bilodeau, or you can stand pat and do nothing, which is totally fine. The Bruins have already filled the major hole, which was the starting 3. Getting a wing who could play the shooting guard, small forward, handle the ball, score, play some defense. Kusturica has that ability to do it all and is one of the most hyped international prospects we've seen in quite a few years, and he gets to play multiple years at UCLA. I don't think they need to do something, but they want to level up, they could. It's just not clear on where they could go as of this moment, other than being helped out by a Tyler Bilodeau return. He could. It's just not very clear on what could happen with the NBA contracts, 5 for 5 coming back. It's a possibility. It's just not clear that it would happen, and if Bilodeau actually wants that to happen. So we'll discuss if and when any of those things happen. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked on UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.